Are you considering dating again for the first time in a very long time? You might be out there looking for Mr. or Ms. right now, and this time you want to do it right. But the dating world is completely different from the last time you were out and about, and unanswered questions keep popping up in your head, like, how do I move on and get over my ex? Or, what kind of a person is right for me? Or, am I too old to start over? Or, how do I trust someone or even find someone? And then that little tiny voice in the back of your head wonders, is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be worth all the effort if I do? Our special guest today is Dr. Terri Orbuch, and she has a lot of answers for us. Dr. Orbuch is a research professor at the University of Michigan's Institute for Social Research, a sociology professor at Oakland University, and the project director of a landmark study of marriage, divorce, and repartnering funded by the National Institute of Health. She's a prolific author and a national relationship counselor who certainly has earned the stripes to be known as the Love Doctor. Dr. Orbuch is refreshingly optimistic and filled with great tips and techniques that I've asked her to share with us on today's show of Graceful Aging entitled Finding Love Again. Won't you join us? Well, I'm glad you're with us on Graceful Aging today, and our guest is Dr. Terri Orbuch. And amidst all of those great qualifications that I just provided as far as in the intro, you are a renowned author of Finding Love Again.
Yes.
What an exciting, it's got to be exciting to be an author, is it?
Absolutely. And I think it's great because it's based on real people and following these people for such a long period of time that when people read it, they can really see themselves in the book.
You know, that was something that really struck me as well, because you go to the bookstores, what remaining bookstores there are, or you look on Amazon and you see books on dating, and there's just reams of them. But what I really found with your book, it is very distinct from that average dating after 50 or dating book. Why don't you tell our viewers, you know, what's the bedrock of this book?
Well, I think there are several unique aspects to this book, or differences from all the other dating books out there for 50-plus individuals. The first is that it's really based on science. It's based on a long-term project that I've been involved with for over 25 years, and we've been following the same individuals now for that period of time. So everyone started married in 1986, and we've been following 373 couples, now 746 individuals. If they stay married, we continue to follow them as a couple, and if they get divorced, we continue to follow the divorced individuals. So every step, every finding, every strategy is really based on a long-term study.
I think that gives your book so much depth that readers are going to appreciate. I certainly did on it. And you know, what was interesting to me is that through all of this work, you're seeing a process to finding love again, aren't you?
Yes, I think there really is a process. It isn't that individuals are just going out there and dating again, because then they're not as successful in finding new love. But if you can first sit back and really start the process from the inside out. So the book is based on first looking at your attitudes, then your emotions, then your behaviors, then your sense of self. And when you've done all of that, then you can get out there and date again. And then I don't leave the readers just dating and having one or two dates. I then also, in the last chapter of the book, talk about how do you know if a relationship is right? Once you're in a relationship, how do you make it strong and last for a long period of time?
So can I go to the last page and find all the answers?
Yes.
If it were only that easy.
If it were only that easy, right, exactly.
Well, you know, so people find themselves wanting romance, wanting love, whether it's because their spouse passed or because of divorce or separation or just a breakup. So you handle all of those different circumstances of life and help people out.
Yes, it's really a book on finding new love if you've experienced the loss of a spouse or partner due to death, a divorce or separation, or even if you've been in a long-term relationship for a long period of time and it's ended. So all of the steps, all of the strategies are for all of those individuals.
And that first step that you have about resetting your expectations, so we have to approach it differently, don't we? You know, as we're older, as we're experienced, don't we know it all, and so we can re-enter that dating market, and we know it all, don't we?
I wish we knew it all, Greg.
So how do we reset those expectations?
Well, first, I think we're all running around with a lot of myths, a lot of unrealistic expectations that have been passed down from generation to generation. We've learned from our parents or our friends or even the media. And so what we need to do is look at those expectations, look at those attitudes or beliefs about relationships or about how our partner should treat us, and make sure they're realistic. They're not a should statement in our head that when we're in a relationship isn't going to occur. And most of our attitudes or most of our ideas really are. For example, one of the myths that I find a lot, I just told you that it's a myth, so I can't ask you the question.
I'll erase that.
Okay. But is there, what do you think, Greg? Is there a predetermined time period that individuals need to wait before they date again? If they've experienced the loss of a partner due to death or a divorce, do they need to wait a specific period of time before they date again?
Well, my grandmother always told me to wait 30 minutes before I ran into the lake and swam, and my mom repeated that too.
Right, I remember that too.
I think somewhere along those lines there was this cultural thing of waiting a year after a death or a divorce, or I think then maybe 6 months. So how about those?
Exactly, and I think I've heard both of those, or a month for every year that you've been together.
That's too complicated.
2 years, all of those. But the reality is that there's no predetermined time period that you need to wait. There's no research study, no science-based idea that argues you need to wait. Really, what your friends are telling you, what your family member, your grandmother is telling you is not true. The reality is that everyone has a different period of time that they need to wait based on the relationship and based on how attached they are to that individual. So you need to decide whether you can date right away or whether or not you need to wait a period of time. In fact, there were some individuals in my study that even separated emotionally while they were still in the relationship. So when they were physically separated, they were ready to date the next day.
I think there's many other myths. I like the way you confronted them in such a practical way and really set people's expectations properly going forward.
Exactly, because if we don't, we're going to get frustrated when we begin to date. Because when our expectations don't meet reality, then we get frustrated, we get disappointed, and we're not going to be able to find love again or find a good, healthy relationship again.
Yeah, that's that second step then of all of this baggage that we carry through life. Your second step was get a clean slate or clean the slate.
Absolutely.
How do we do that? I mean,
Well, first, I like to think about it, Greg, like we're going on an airplane. I think we all have baggage, emotional baggage, based on our past relationships, but some of our bags are heavy. And so when we go on the plane, the flight attendant says you can't go on the plane. Your bags are too heavy. And so that's what you want to think about. If your baggage is too much, if you're too emotionally attached to the past, to a past relationship, whether it be positive and you're pining away, or whether it be negative and you're angry, you need to let go of some of the emotions. And I talk a lot about how to do that in the book. For example, one of the things I talk about is assigning blame to the end of a relationship, if it's a divorce or separation.
Oh, so I can point the finger.
Yes, you can point the finger, but you want to point the finger at the relationship, at the two of you. Not at your partner and not at you, because when you point blame at your partner, you get angry.
Sure.
And then you're emotionally attached and you have that baggage. If you point blame at you, and you become depressed and sad, and that's a different kind of emotional baggage. But if you begin to say what I call we statements, we weren't compatible, the relationship wasn't right, we got married too early.
Not his fault, not my fault, not your
Exactly.
fault, not, okay.
Then you're able to let go of some of that baggage. Another example would be that you can write a letter to your ex-partner or ex-spouse. Get it all out on paper, but don't send the letter. Keep the letter for yourself, because the exercise is really for you.
Oh, but it'd be
to
so
purge.
tempting. It'd be so tempting
It
to
would
give
be
that letter.
tempting, but then you're missing the point as an individual who sends it. Then you're hoping and you're still pining, or you want the anger to be recognized by your partner.
I think that's interesting. You know, in negotiations, or when you think about things, trying to stay on your own playing field or a neutral playing field sure is a lot more advantageous than sticking it to the other side, trying to find those common.
Exactly. You're fully
common ways.
present. You're not, caught in negativity. And what I found in my long-term study is that when you are emotionally neutral, you're much more likely to attract people who aren't negative, and you're much more likely to see someone who comes in your space. Otherwise, we don't even see that person who might be great for us. So when you can become neutral, you're fully present, you can see the person, and you're more likely to attract a better partner.
Now, doing all of that thinking is one thing.
Right.
You recommend in your third step that people literally make a 21-day action plan.
Yes.
So a written plan, what's involved in a 21-day action plan?
Well, first you need to pick a behavior that you really think you could change for 21 days.
About the other person or about me?
You.
Okay.
Exactly. Because what I found is that if you stay in your same old path, you're less likely to find new love. But if you can change a behavior to a different behavior, then you sort of shake things up a little bit, and you're much more likely to find new love again.
Okay, but are you saying that I have to change my character? I have to become a different person?
No, a behavior. For example,
yeah.
the individuals in my study said, many of them said, I cut my work hours by 1 hour each day. So behaviorally, I left work during lunch, and I went to a park, or I went to a restaurant and had lunch, or I left work earlier than I used to, and I went to the gym. So it's a behavior that they literally changed for 21 days, and those individuals that did that found new love, or significantly more likely to find new love.
You have some great additional tips like that we're going to save for our readers to take a look at your book. You know, a couple in this chapter I thought were very interesting. I mean, you're showing people how to argue in a constructive way, and then it kind of tickled me. You're showing people how to apologize.
Yes.
Give us some clues on how you can apologize so that it works for you and works for the other person and that situation.
Right. Well, I first agree with you completely that giving an apology is so important. It allows us to move forward. Some of the tips that I give are take responsibility when you apologize.
Like how?
Say what you did wrong. Tell the person, I'm sorry. I know that I didn't think before I said something, for example, and I didn't have the words that I really wanted to have when I was telling you what I needed.
So hard
take responsibility. I know it's so hard for me to just
find,
do that, right?
And it's so hard to find those words at the time.
It really is. And then once you take responsibility, one of the other tips is give an action plan for the future. In the future, I will try to do this. So not only taking responsibility for the present and what you did wrong, but then giving an action plan for the future. And when you give an apology with those two qualities, you are much more likely to see that that other person accepts your apology and you move forward, that it's forgotten and you go on.
Kind of create that neutral ground between the two of you.
Exactly, and that's really what you want to do.
Sure. Well, those are three steps. We've got to get to step 6, and we're going to do that right after a break. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Finding love again, it's a good goal for all of us. We want those good, healthy relationships, and Dr. Terri Orbuch is still showing us how. We're on step 4, but let's do a little break here. Is a healthy relationship gives us good long life? I know you and I talked about that at one point.
It really does. What we find is that if you're in a happy, healthy relationship, you're much more likely to be healthier psychologically and physically. So you're less likely to be sad or depressed or even anxious, and you're able to handle stress better, so that when something happens in your life, whether it be someone honks at you as you're going around a turnaround, or you have these deadlines, you're much more likely to handle that stress better. And physically, we also find that people are healthier, less likely to get colds, the flu. It boosts our immune system when we're in a happy, healthy relationship.
Great bonuses.
It's wonderful, great bonuses. Even mere touch, mere positive touch, helps individuals just be calm. I mean, even when I thought about it, I became calm.
Well, I like those, as far as in the first half when we talked about those 3 steps, I can see where that kind of balances and centers an individual so that they can find love again. And step 4 kind of does that as well. And you talk about step 4 being renew the real you.
Yes.
So we can find the real us.
Yes, I think that's it, that we need to find the real us or you. I think what happens, Greg, is that we're in a relationship and we do some compromising and we change a little bit. We change our key life values, we change our personality a little bit. And so then when we're not in a relationship, we may really not be who we want to be.
So how do we find ourselves?
And so we have to step back and say, first, what are our key life values? And a lot of chapter 4 is looking at different areas of life: family, children, money, a balance of work and family.
I want my
health.
family, I want more money, I want my kids not to yell at me.
All of those, right? Or how do I spend money? Do I want to save or do I want to spend? Do I want to put money away for my kids? Or do I want to put money away for me?
But doesn't everybody
what is my approach to money?
And everybody, though, really kind of idly thinks about those things through the course of the day. Are you saying that in this process of finding love that we've got to do a harder study, a different study?
We have to do a harder study, and we really have to know what we think about some really important issues, like saving, or like family, or like if my child didn't have a job, would it be okay for him or her to come and live back home with me? Those are kinds of questions that I give in the book that people need to really explore. Because what you want when you're out back in the dating world is to find someone who has the same key life values as you. That similarity in key life values is what keeps people together in a relationship, happy and healthy, over the long term. But you can't know if you're finding someone who's compatible unless you know what your own key life values are. So the first part of chapter 4 is all that exploration. The second part of chapter 4 is looking at what kind of partner do you really want? What are the qualities that are important to you? Again, Greg, I think we know, but we need to write them down. And I talk about you only get 15 qualities, no more and no less.
It was pretty generous, though.
It was generous, I thought. But some people have books. When they come to me as a client, as a therapist, they have pages of qualities. And some people can only come up with 5. So 15 is what you have to come up with, and you have to prioritize.
I love in this chapter how you help people do that as well. Like on money, we've had other shows about how women have to get much more assertive about their vocabulary and their ability to talk money. And you do a nice job within that. We could yank that out and it could be a whole show about how you've helped people talk about money.
Thank you.
But they also have to take risks, you talk about in step 5.
Yes.
So what are you talking about of
Talking
risks?
about you gotta get out there then. Once you've looked at your expectations and you've cleaned the baggage as much as you can, you've changed the behavior, and you have a real good sense of yourself and who you want as a partner, then you have to take a risk and go out there and try. Attempt to find that someone special. And I talk about different places to do that, like online dating, which is really successful. Studies show, including my own, that online dating is very successful. And so what you want to do is have a profile, put some photos out there, take my safety tips.
Which were very good.
Thank you.
And I think people do get scared, and rightfully so. I mean, we should be cautious about giving out any personal information, and I love the way that you put it in very practical terms of how to move out there, but yet be safe.
And I think any way you go, whether it be online dating or a party or being fixed up or trying to meet someone at a singles, mingles, greet, you need to be safe. And the same safety tips are important no matter where you meet that someone special. Absolutely.
How can you determine? So I'm taking all these risks and I go online and I'm safe, or I go to the party and I've done all my self-analysis and I'm rock solid of who I am, or I think so. How do I know if the other person is not playing a game with me? How can I trust my intuition? What are some measures that I can use?
Well, first, I think you do have to trust your gut and your intuition. I think people don't do that enough, and they don't see then the red flags that might be in front of them. And so trust your intuition. Ask questions to this person. Make sure they're consistent in their answers. Make sure that if they say they're going to be somewhere, that they are somewhere. So trust your intuition. And then I talk about 3 questions that you should ask yourself. Okay. First, do you trust this person?
So you're asking this to yourself.
You're asking this to yourself. Is this person trustworthy? And can I trust this other person? And if your answer is yes, then the second question is, do you have similar underlying values and attitudes, those key life values that we talked about money, lifestyle, family, children, health, fitness? Are we similar? Now, we don't have to have similar interests. We don't have to have similar food preferences. We can like to do totally different things in terms of music or theater. But in terms of those key life values, are they similar? And then the third thing is...
I want to go back to the first one on trust. If my answer was no, would it be sayonara, Charlie?
Well, it depends on how long it's been with that person. I mean, trust takes time to develop.
But
so if it's a new relationship, give it a little bit of time, but absolutely, that's a red flag. Why don't you trust this person? Have they said things that then they haven't, been reliable or honest? They say they're going to do something and then they're never there, or they don't have your best interests at heart.
I don't want to miss the third question.
Oh, and then
you
the
were on
third
a roll
question.
And I interrupted you.
Sorry. The third question is, how do you do conflicts or disagreements? There are always going to be some things where you disagree about something, whether it be how much of a tip to give to the waiter or waitress, or politics or religion. But how do you do those disagreements? And you want to be able to do them constructively.
So how do I do that? Do I raise an argument to see how the other person argues, or do I say, tell me how you argue, or all of those things?
I think you wait for it to happen. Because if you ask questions, there's going to be some topic that you're different on. Because when you think about it, Greg, we come from different neighborhoods and families and states, cities. We might be different, religions. We're bound to disagree on something. And so when those differences occur, notice what happens. Are we polite to each other?
And drive into them to see how it develops?
Continue to talk, because I think it's good to know how you're going to do those differences, because many, many more differences will come down the path. So you want to make sure that you're respectful of each other's opinions. Does that person validate what you're saying? They can disagree, but do they validate it? Are they looking at you? Are they listening? Or are they just concerned with saying their own piece?
Well, this is a great point, because I see the process. Those first 4 steps, I really have to be very serious about those first 4 steps to know where I'm coming from in order to evaluate those value differences and those disagreements with a person at that point.
Exactly, you have to be certain. But I also think those first 4 steps give you control and power. And I think what's missing for a lot of people when they just go out there and they don't do the first 4 steps is power and control and feeling confident about themselves and their ability to find someone.
And the power that they have, I thought was interesting in your 6th step about keeping it together. You talk about emptying the pet peeve pail frequently. And I love that whole phrase. So tell people, how often should they empty the pet peeve pail, and what is that all about?
Well, emptying your pet peeve pail, PPP, means that once you've been in a relationship for several months, not at the beginning, not when you're first dating or on a first date, but once you've been together for several months or several years, don't let the small things slide.
So easy to say.
It's so easy to say. But if something bothers you or annoys you, use your I statements, bring it up with your partner. Don't attack them. Make sure the situation is a good situation, and tell them what annoys you. Because what I found in my long-term study is that if you don't do that, again, after a period of time of being with someone, not at the beginning, but if you don't do that, those little things accumulate over time and they become big issues and they become really hard to unpack. When it's small and seemingly insignificant, you can address it, you can move on. But if you don't, all of the sudden, it's he doesn't respect me, she doesn't love me, he doesn't listen,
And it's
I'm
so
in a
hard.
wrong relationship, which started out with just he
Little
put his
stuff.
socks on the floor, or I don't like how she chews her food. Small thing that can change becomes a big thing that you can't.
And if we do all of these 6 steps, it's worth it, isn't it?
Oh, it's so worth it. I mean, we talked about the physical and psychological benefits, but also relationships are fun. They're about happiness, they're about laughter, they're about personal growth, and we forget that. We forget that they're supposed to be about fun, not just seriousness, but fun and laughter.
Laughing, fun,
Yeah, it's
smiles.
great to be in a relationship. I mean, there's someone there to help you in good and bad times.
Well, Dr. Terri Orbuch, you are going to help a ton of people, I know, with this show, and if they go out and purchase your book as well, because it's available everywhere now.
It is.
And no matter what the person's situation is, they can have fun and find love again. You've shown them how.
It is possible.
Thank you so much for
Thanks
being
for
with Graceful
having me.
Aging. My pleasure.
My pleasure, too.